straight off the plane from Winnipeg and straight down to talk to my guy, Theo Lander, about the UFC 301 best bets. And I can't wait. Shout out to Harry Powell and Spencer Kite for covering for me this week for both the breakdown and the preview. Definitely head back and listen to the 301 preview with the lads. They did a great job. We're not going to get too technical here. We're going to be talking bets. We're going to be talking where some money is going to be won, where some money is lost, sharing our thoughts here on a bunch of fights coming up in Brazil. Before we get into it, please gamble responsibly. We're having a bit of fun. We're not betting experts. And, you know, when the fun stops is what they say, Theo. You gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself. How are you doing, my guy?
I'm doing great, man. Honestly, I had the pleasure of not being on a plane 30 minutes ago like yourself, but always good to be back here with you. We've got a really difficult card to honestly pick apart here. There's a lot of heavy favorites, especially on the main card. So we had to get a little bit more specific with our predictions here and our picks. So again, want to emphasize, please be responsible here. We're not doing anything crazy. Just trying to have a bit of fun. And I think this is going to be a card that will produce a lot of that. So excited to get into it here with you, Ian.
Yeah, let's do just that. And as I said, all of the helplines will be attached to the comment section or the discussion section under the video on YouTube. Let's get into it. Main event: Alejandro Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. Looking forward to this. This is kind of a low key, really interesting technical, tactical fight that I'm really excited to see. I was lucky enough to get to see Steve Erceg right up close and personal at UFC 289, I think it was, the one in Vancouver. I can't remember what the numbers were at this stage, but look at I saw him there and I thought to myself, this guy has a bit about him, and I thought, like, you know, I wouldn't be too surprised if I saw this guy in a title shot, but I didn't expect to see him this soon. Things have worked out quite well for him, and it's kind of a stark rise up the rankings and a great opportunity here for Erceg to go in and cause a big upset in Brazil against the hometown favorite Alejandro Pantoja. Your thoughts on the fight itself first, Theo, and then we'll get into where the money will be won and lost.
Yeah, well, it just feels like Steve Erceg here is a real big beneficiary of circumstance. Feels like a lot of guys, at least at the top of 125 right now, are really tied up with, other commitments to different fights. Some guys are out due to injury. A lot of people just couldn't get on this Brazil card in enough time because the UFC, at least recently, and I want to know what you think about this as well, has been really scheduling people with not a lot of preparation time ahead, it seems like. It feels like nowadays these fights get announced a month and a half in advance. Like, it just sort of felt like, I don't want to say this card was thrown together, but it just felt like a lot of people who were offered this didn't have enough time to really prepare properly. And part of that, I believe, is why Steve Erceg's in this spot. Now, that's not to say that he's not deserving of this, but let's be honest, the guy is ranked 7. We don't really see guys ranked outside the top 5 getting title shots like this. So it's maybe a little bit earlier than people thought Steve Erceg would have been here, but I think he's more than ready for the opportunity. He's a tough out for anybody, dangerous everywhere he goes. And that's exactly the type of guy you need to go in there against a guy like Alexander Pantoja, who as well is dangerous in every transition of the fight. I honestly don't believe that there's a bad matchup you can make in the top 10 of flyweight. I think you can mix and match any of those guys together to be absolutely electric. And I think any of those guys have a chance of winning all those matchups. So this is just going to be another round of the flyweight roundabout here where they all just get a shot at the title. And hopefully Alexander Pantoja is able to shine a little bit here, along with Steve Erceg in the main event, to bring some more life into this division. Hopefully people will start taking the fights more seriously here, because they always have tremendous fights, especially when the title's on the line. So I expect no less than that on this fight night.
Yeah, I expect this to be fairly, high paced. I expect Pantoja to come out here and set a good pace and try and test Erceg. What we've seen with Erceg is always a kind of controlled level of striking and level of performance as well. Very technical, very accurate with his strikes. And it's going to be up to Pantoja here to kind of, I feel, close the distance and mix it up on the feet. I'd expect him to really mix up his striking and grappling here and keep Erceg guessing. And that could shut down the striking of Erceg here. And I'm interested to see. Look, I think we're going to find a lot out about Erceg here in terms of what he's overall skill set is. Look, we know he's super effective on the feet. We haven't seen him too much off his back. We haven't seen him really get grinded on in terms of a sticky pace that could tire you out. And I think Pantoja, can do that. I think early he will, and he will try to kind of grind on Ursug's cardio tank, and I'm wondering if he can maintain that throughout the course of 5 rounds, or will Ursig grow into this fight? And if that happens, because we've seen Pantoja somewhat slow down against Royval, and that was a blistering pace at the last fight, which was at 299, or what was it? 29. What was the one I was at? 296. Excuse me.
6, yeah.
Yeah, against Brandon Royval, and he started strong there and faded, and Royval came into it here now. There was a lot of scrambling in that fight. Does Ursig scramble as well as what Royval will do? Because when you're a good scrambler and you're facing a good scrambler, it can be kind of counterproductive, and it can kind of eat away where you're constantly working, constantly trying to shift into that space you want to be. I'm not sure whether Ursig is that adaptive in his grappling than what we've seen from Brandon Royval, but we're going to find out, I'm sure, on Saturday night. And to get in to where the money is going to be won and going to be lost, who are you fancying for this? Like, I know the picks are in. I haven't had a chance to take too much of a look. My pick was Pantoja by decision. I think he'll probably just do enough in the early stages of this fight to kind of secure a win on the scorecards. If I reached out for a couple of opinions on bets, and a couple of people are fancying finishes from both of these guys as well. I fancy this fight to go to the decision, and I think Pantoja might get his hand raised. What do you think might happen? And that's not to say, before I let you in, that's not to say that Steve Ursig doesn't have a chance. He's got a hell of a chance to get a win in this fight, I believe. Theo, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly, an interesting thing that I was listening to actually today on my way in here was the Severe Setup show with, obviously Spencer Kite filled in this week for you along with Harry Powell. And Spencer said something interesting. He was like, I'm wondering how Pantoja is going to approach this, because it feels like in the lead up to this, Pantoja's been treating Steve Ursig as like, okay, you're a guy that I believe should be here. I think you're ready for this. Now, when the bell rings and they're ready to go down, is Pantoja going to have that same respect for him? Is he going to pour it on him? Is he going to really test him to make sure that he's ready for this moment? And I think that is something that's going to play into this. I think you're spot on that, Pantoja is going to try to wear him out early. He's going to try to be active early, do enough in the early half of this fight to be up on the scorecards, where now Steve Ursig is getting desperate. He's got to make big moments in the fight to be able to either win on the scorecards or even get a finish. Now, he's more than capable of those things, but I just don't believe, based on the odds they're giving you, that you're able to look away from Alexander Pantoja in the spot, a guy who's been there, done that, who's been in some crazy title fights already, who has that experience of going the distance as well. There's too many things here where you see lining up for Pantoja and too many question marks around Steve Ursig to confidently put money on his side. So for the purpose of this, I just decided to just play it easy here. I think Pantoja could finish him given the early pressure he'll put on him, but Steve Ursig is as tough as they come. And honestly, it feels like the flyweights, once they get to the upper echelon, it feels like they settle into more fight, and they settle more into fights than they would in their earlier parts of their career. The finishes come less and less, and when it's 5 rounds, I think they're going to be pacing themselves a little bit more. A finish is less likely, and if a finish is less likely, I have to go with the guy who's been there, done that over 5 rounds. So Pantoja money line here is the play for me.
Pantoja moneyline -188 on Bet365 for Pantoja, plus 162 for Steve Ursig. I mean, there is some value on the underdog there, but I am leaning towards you. What my pick is Pantoja, but I've gone safe on the bet altogether, and I've gone this fight just flat out to go to a decision. Plus 125 for this one to go. Look at, if it's not finished within the first 2.5 rounds, maybe 3 rounds, I think this one is definitely going to go all the way, because I think Pantoja will run out of a bit of juice. How durable is Ursig? We don't know. You would think, look at, he has 6 submissions in his career so far, so that would tell you that he is somewhat handy in the grappling department. So I think the winning and the losing and how it's done is going to be on Steve Urseg here. We know what Pantoja brings. We know what he's going to do. Can Urseg last the pace? I think he can. I think this is going to a decision. And, you know, right now for everybody, I'm going to go the safe bet for just the fight to go to decision. If you look at Steve Urseg, or excuse me, Pantoja to win a decision, you can get that at plus 240. So, you know, if you're fancying either one of these guys, I mean, if you fancy Steve Urseg to go all the way, it's plus 500. So, you know, I like this. I think it will go to the decision, and I'm fairly happy with that bet. To be honest, I'm not going to gamble too much. So you're straight up money line with Pantoja. I am going for this fight to go to decision plus 125. We'll move on to the next one, and that's the King of Rio. He's back. Jose Aldo, Jonathan Martinez. Very, very surprised to see Jose Aldo's name pop up on this card, given, you know, he's the fact he retired, he's in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, he tried to step away and they pulled him back in. Theo, are you excited to see the return of Jose?
I'm
Jose?
buzzing for this right now for Jose Aldo. I never do this, Ian, but I'm going to be honest with the audience for once. This is my favorite fighter of all time. So if you think I'm being biased toward Jose Aldo, you're correct. I absolutely am. And I honestly feel like in this matchup, you know, he's had time away from the sport. You're right. But he boxed 3 times in 2023. So this is not a guy who's coming off the couch. This is not a guy who has been out of the gym. At the very least, he's been harnessing his boxing skills. So he's been in combat sports, you know, even after the UFC era has ended for him. And now he's back in here. So I don't think, you know, the criticism around Jose Aldo heading in this fight is all that fair, to be honest with you. I think people are just sort of banking on him not being ready for this moment, but I think he's more than ready for this. And especially when you factor in this might be his last run in the UFC, or at least his last fight, to go out on top on an even 40 fights in his career in Rio. There's no reason for Aldo to leave anything in the tank here. He's not thinking about, oh, maybe I don't want to throw as many leg kicks right now because I'm at the end of my career, have a few fights left in me, don't want to damage that weapon that I have used so well in my career. He's going to be throwing everything out there. It's do or die. And honestly, man, a lot of people were saying that Jonathan Martinez is sort of going to be the guy who would be able to neutralize Aldo because he's so good with the leg kicks himself. I don't think Martinez has faced anybody like Jose Aldo who's going to be able to challenge him in that department, who's going to be able to check kicks as effectively as Jose Aldo. You know, everyone's saying this is a tough matchup for Jose Aldo, but in my opinion, I think the inverse is true. This is an extremely dangerous matchup for Jonathan Martinez in enemy territory. How is this guy going to respond, to your opinion, Ian?
It's very, very interesting. I like what you said there because, you know, Aldo has been active. You're spot on there. So, like, I mean, he's not coming off the couch here or anything like that. I would imagine, you know, this fight, you were saying a lot of these fights got kind of put together last minute. This fight was together last minute, but I think there was other opponents in the works. I know there were talks of Dominic Cruz and everything like that. So I would imagine Jose has got a good camp here, and I'm excited to see him back. I'm not confident enough right now at this minute to put money down on this fight because you just never know. You know, Jonathan Martinez has been on a hell of a run, and this is a fantastic opportunity for him to come in here against the legend on a 6-fight win streak. After a great performance over my guy Adrian Yanez, like I'm a big fan of Yanez, so I'm very interested to see how Jose Aldo looks. When you're looking at the betting of this fight, you're looking at Jose. I always call him Jose. It's Jose. I should just say Aldo, shouldn't I? Minus 160 for Jonathan Martinez. For Aldo, plus 130. A live dog there, Jose Aldo, I think. So, you know, like as I said, I picked some other bets. I think we, you know, spoiler alert, we may have a certain Jose in team parlay later on that we'll talk about. So I said I wouldn't chance on it twice, and I've chose not to put any bets on this fight. What about you? Where's your money? I have a feeling where it's going down.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious where it's going. And last time we had this show, I said Jim Miller, out of respect for a guy who's made weight as many times as he has, we have to ride with him. This is another one that's due to respect. If there's any guy who's ever earned a respect bet in the history of the UFC, it's Jose Aldo. So if you're giving me him at plus odds, I feel like it's my duty to do so. For the amount of entertainment this guy's given myself and, of course, MMA fandom over the years, it's the least I could do, Ian. So I'm gonna ride with Jose Aldo here.
The respect bet. That's it. We've formulated a new type of bet there. I love it. The respect bet on Jose Aldo. Um, plus 130 there if you fancy. Little bit of a look in it. If you're looking at Aldo by decision, plus 240, Aldo by KO, plus 550, Aldo by submission. Now, I tell you, there would be a flyer bet, plus 2,000 if he was to get down and pull it off. Martinez by decision or submission, plus 1,200 by KO, TKO, plus 375, and by decision plus 145 there. So whatever tickles your fancy on that one. As I said, I didn't feel confident enough to really stake a big one on Jose for this. As we move on, Vitor Petrino, Anthony Smith, got some action on this. Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one for Anthony Smith. I feel very strongly about how his durability levels are at this stage of his career after taking a hell of a lot of damage. And I think the big question for me is here, is Vitor Petrino good enough at this stage of his career to get Anthony Smith out of there? And that's something I'm unsure about yet. Look at undefeated on a hell of a run, picked up a couple of wins inside the UFC. What are you expecting to see in this one, Theo?
I'm expecting this to go the way the UFC probably is expecting this to go, and the reason why they made this matchup. I mean, this is just classic matchmaking. You bring in the aging veteran who still has a name, who's not completely at the end of his run yet, although I guess that's really up for everyone else's opinion. You bring that guy into Rio to build the next star, and I think that's exactly what Petrino is. This guy is an absolute monster, and the fact that he's going in there against Anthony Smith, who, to be honest with you, Ian, it feels like for the last 5 or so years, the big narrative around Anthony Smith is that his biggest strength is his durability. And like you said there, at this point, we don't really know how much of that is still left. And so I really wanted to go on Anthony Smith's side here. I tried to find the value in it. And the more I looked in the matchup, the more taped I watched, the more I looked in these guys' history. Trends tell you that this does not end well for Anthony Smith. I think honestly, and I hate to even say this, but I think making it to the bell for Anthony Smith would be a bit of a moral victory here because Petrino is that good. And for that reason, I had to just pick Petrino inside the distance. You're getting it around minus 150, so that's just him to either win by stoppage of some sort. I think that's really the only way you can go on this one because honestly, I tried to find a reason for Anthony Smith, and I really couldn't do it.
Yeah, interesting you say that that's the only way to go. I've chosen Petrino, but a different route. I didn't feel that there was enough. I didn't feel that there was enough value in that inside the distance bet. I've gone for Petrino by decision. It's a kind of a. I think I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. I think if Anthony Smith can get to the final bell and put in somewhat of a good showing there and not get finished, I think it will be a moral win for him. Look at he is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. That one win came via split decision to Ryan Spann, got knocked out by Cleo Roundtree Jr. Is Vitor Petrino, is he experienced enough to get a veteran savvy like Anthony Smith out of there? I'm not sure, and that's why I've went for the decision at plus 225, and I think that's a damn good bet. Petrino in his last fight went to a decision with Tyson Pedro. It was a fairly easy win. That was the second time, that he's gone to a decision in his career. And you'll see that with fighters coming up and, you're getting a little bit of step up and a step up and a step up again. They have a little bit more difficulty in trying to get those guys out of there. So I'm banking on Petrino winning a dominant decision. I think it will be dominant. I think you're spot on about Petrino. He is really good. Does he have the experience to get Anthony Smith? I'm not so sure. That's why I've gone for the decision plus 225. Theo's gone for inside the distance minus 125. Is that what you said?
It's actually around minus 150, so
150.
it's a pretty fair price, but I do see what you're saying there. Petrino by decision,
Well,
I could see it, man. Well, Anthony Smith is a crafty veteran himself, obviously. I don't want to downplay his abilities at all here. And I do think there are opportunities for him to make this fight a bit more difficult than Petrino would anticipate. So I think if you're getting decision at those odds, It's absolutely worth a flyer, but just in my personal opinion, man, I think it'd be really hard to ask Anthony Smith to go the distance here.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that too much. Like I said, a little bit of more of a hope than anything else for me that I think I'll lay out how I think the fight will go. I think Petrino is going to come out. He's going to crack him hard. If he doesn't put Anthony Smith out, it's going to force Anthony Smith to grapple, and you're going to have this kind of up against the cage kind of, I would say, clinch battle, maybe a takedown here or there, and you can see Pacino kind of out strengthen him in a few positions, and that's the way I want the fight to go. If these guys fight, I can honestly say if these guys just stand in front of one another for 3 rounds, your bet's going to come up. And I don't think we've seen Smith kind of try to close the distance as well. Moving on to the next one, Ihor Porteria versus Michel Pereira. This is going to be just a bona fide slaughter, in my opinion, to be honest. I ain't going to pull any punches on this. I think Michel Pereira absolutely trucks Porteria in this fight, and I think he does it early as well. There's just no way I can see any route to victory here for Porteria. Do you, Theo?
No, honestly, and I think it's a really tough ask for him to do so coming in as a replacement fighter on relatively short notice, especially at this point in Michel Pereira's career where it feels like he's really putting everything together. He sort of started out as running the UFC as being known as the absolute wildest man in the promotion. Of course, people remember his backflip into mount on Nico Price and, sort of crazy things he does like that all the time. Now that he's settled down a little bit, you start to really realize how talented this guy is. Michel Pereira is a guy who can just explode at any given moment, and he's got the power because of that to put anyone away at any time in the fight. So, again, you're asking Ihor to come in here and sort of pull off a win against a guy like that on short notice in his home country. It's a really tall task for him, and for that reason, I have to go with Michel Pereira. However, I do want to mention this as well. I feel like a lot of people are trying to downplay Ihor Potera here in part in relation to how he handled the whole Shogun thing at the end, of course, where he does his celebration with
It
the
was the shadow of Shogun. Let's be real. Let's
yeah,
be real. The ghost,
of
the
course.
ghost, the shadow,
And
not the shadow,
that's
the
and
ghost.
that's partly why people feel the way they do about him, of course.
I'm massively upset about that, to be
I
honest, 'cause
bet.
I love Shogun.
Yeah, of course. And like that's honestly why I feel like a lot of people have a negative view here of Ihor Potera. I
Yeah.
think he's being underestimated here a little bit. It's a very different style matchup for Michel Pereira to also take on relatively short notice. So that's why I still have to go with Michel Pereira here, but I'm going to take him to win and for the fight to go over 1.5 rounds. Maybe gets a finish late, perhaps goes to decision, but I had to pick him to go over 1.5 rounds and to get the victory there, Michel Pereira. That's going to be at plus 130. And I feel like that's pretty decent odds given the matchup here.
Yeah, I'm going to go exactly the opposite way. And when I said I was upset at Terry, it was a little bit tongue in cheek, and of course, and I don't let my emotions get in the way, but I just don't see this is a massive jump in competition for Igor Porteria. I think, we've seen Pehe in his last fight. He's a monster. He's an animal at 185. Like you see him fighting Theo at 185, and you're like, what took you so long? Why were you cutting down to 170? The guy looks like a 205er in there at 185. He has his gas tank back. He has his explosiveness back. And we've seen the result of that in his two last fights with Petrosky and Olejenchuk. Two first round finishes, and I guarantee you this is another first round finish. I'm very confident. Plus 200 for first round finish. Get in my belly. I love it. All over that shit. I'm surprised Pereira didn't fight a ranked opposition, to be honest, after what he did to what would be considered, in my opinion, similar competition that he's going to be facing on Saturday night. I think this is the last kind of, we all talk about Paul Hughes and showcase fights and everything like that. This is another middleweight showcase fight for Michel Pereira. He's going to get another highlight reel knockout in round one, plus 200. I'm super confident about that too. But my confidence can turn to ultimate disappointment. It's happened time and time again. Theo is going for the over 1.5, which kind of is a little bit outside of my bet, but I can understand that too. If I do look at the 1.5, and actually I was looking at that bet too. You can get the same game parlay at over 1.5 round, or the fight to finish under 1.5 rounds. And for Pereira to win is like plus 175, I think. But yeah, when I was in there and I saw the first round knockout, I think that was where the best value was at. I'm going for the early finish there. But yeah, always excited to see Pereira. He is a bona fide madman. As we move on to the next one on the card, we have Paul Craig versus Cow Bahalio. Anything in this one, Theo? I don't have anything here personally.
I do. I have Kai Barral here to win, and as well, like the last one we just talked about, over 1.5 rounds here. I think this is like a grappler's dream matchup. Although I believe that Kai is going to want to be able to sort of take this one on the feet and keep it there, because really Paul Craig, especially in that department, is a little bit underwhelming. Not to say that Kai Barral is some world beater on the feet, but obviously fight the guy where he's weakest, keep it sitting for as long as possible. I believe this fight looks a lot like Paul Craig continuously pulling guard, doing anything to get it to the ground. I think Kai Barallo is a bit too wise to fall for those types of tricks. But again, you can never count Paul Craig out. Some guys on the ground, they're willing to give up position to gain something else, or they're able to give up a limb to trick you to go another way. Paul Craig's a little bit different in that he'll be willing to sacrifice his face just to get an opportunity to get a sub attempt up. So he's always dangerous no matter when you think he's out of the fight. We've seen that in all of his previous bouts here. So I definitely don't want to count him out. I think the odds on the money line here are insane. Like, I don't think Paul Craig should be this big of an underdog at all. But regardless, I'm not going to let that suck me in. I know they're trying to trap me here, Ian. I'm not going to fall for the trap again. I'm going to stick with Kai Barallo, but I'm going to take him to go again over 1.5 rounds to beat him.
Yeah, I like that bet. I do like that bet because, Paul Craig has his back against the wall. He's talked about it during the week this week, and he's caused a couple of upsets as well. Now, we've seen Bahalio dominate guys in the grappling department, obviously getting a rear naked choke over Olajenchuk. Poor Olajenchuk has gotten beaten bad by two guys on this card, or maybe more if we look even deeper. But I feel it's a very good stylistic matchup for Bahalio in terms of he's not going to want to touch the ground here, to be honest. I think, the UFC are setting him up at this fight to try and go out there, land some strikes, maybe get a finish on the feet, add on to that kind of highlight reel for Bahalio. I think you're going to be foolish if you go down and try to grapple with Paul Craig, because he can pull submissions out of nowhere at any time of the fight. We've seen him getting submissions with 1 second left on the clock. We know he gets hurt. We know that you can get dropped, and I feel that Cow Bahalio is going to probably pour it on. He has 4 knockouts. He has yet to get a knockout inside the UFC, I believe. He's got a knockout in the Contender Series, but not yet in the UFC. I think this is a good chance for him. I've decided not to bet on this fight, but if you're looking at Bahalio by knockout, it's plus 220. Paul Craig by a decision plus 1,000, by KO plus 1,800, by submission, which wouldn't be a bad one, plus 1,000 for submission for Paul Craig. So
really?
Yeah, man, that's insane odds, isn't it? Like, if he's going to do it, I think in this fight it would be by submission, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you think?
Absolutely.
Because
That's
he is.
jumped up from what I saw it at yesterday too. It was around like plus 750, plus 800 yesterday.
Yeah, they're really
They
banking
they're
on it.
they're
Bahalio.
trying to get me so bad, Ian. They really
They're
want me to
trying.
do this.
Yeah, they are. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe they'll pull you in eventually. But interesting to see what happens in that fight as well. As we move on, Jack Shore versus Johanderson Brito. Yeah, I have money on this. Johanderson Brito is going to be a tough test for Jack Shore. I think Shore, is going to be more filled out at 145. I'm looking forward. Look at, he got back into the win column after his last defeat, or first defeat of his career is what I should say. And he's coming in here against a Brito that's going to be stronger. Feel faster in certain areas and more athletic. But I feel the technical grappling of Jack Shore, and if he plays his cards correctly and kind of closes the distance to kind of wear down Brito, he can get the job done here. I put this down. I'm a little bit dodgy about it, but I've gone for the Jack Shore money line because of that fact. I think he will be a little bit more technical in the grappling department. I think he can wear Brito. Maybe a thing where he might lose the first round and then come on stronger, maybe as Brito tires out. But you can't discount Brito coming out there and causing the somewhat upset. The odds are fairly even. Plus 140 for Jack Shore, minus 170 for Brito. So I have got that incorrect when I sent you that. I got that mixed around. So you're going to get Jack Shore at plus 140, and I like that even better, to be honest. Wouldn't say I'm super confident, but like I said, it was tough to find bets on this card, and I went straight up with Jack Shore as the underdog. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can do it. What do you think about this fight?
So I have no action on this one myself, but I honestly feel like this is such a hard matchup for Jack Shore. I was a little bit surprised to see the line as close as it was. In my opinion, Brito is almost like, I'm not going to compare him obviously to Habib, but he has that almost same aura about him where like he is a type of aggressive grappler that mutes your striking game, where you are so worried about the takedown, where you're so conscious of what he could do to you on the ground that it limits what you're going to do on the feet. He makes you second guess. He makes you a bit hesitant to actually even engage in the first place. I think honestly, Brito is the kind of guy who, if we had to guess, a lot of people are probably turning down to fight this guy. So credit to Jack Shore for taking this not only against a guy who no one wants to fight, but in his own backyard. With that being said, man, I just think that Jack Shore is a little bit in over his head here. Not to say that he couldn't get the victory away, but obviously Brito was just such a monster at this point in his career. Really hard to side with you on this Shore bet plus money, but man, I just think Brito is like one of those guys who's going to tear through his division. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy challenging for a title within the next 2 to 3 years.
Very fair. Big statement there. If you it's a shit hot 135 or 145 pound division, it'd be interesting to see if that does come to fruition. We move on. I'll just label out the next couple of fights here. Carolina Kovalevich versus Isman Lucindo. Plus 300 for Kovalevich, minus 400 for Lucindo. Big favorite on home soil there. Elvis Brenner at plus 200. I like that. I wasn't confident enough to put him down, but he gets into wars. And if he can draw Orlby into a war here, I would fancy him here. But Orlby is a kind of very well-rounded, tough guy to get out of there. John Silva versus William Gomis. I will stop here. I mean, was there any action on those last two fights for you? No?
No, I'm staying away from both of those, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about it too, so I just chose the same. I will stop in John Silver versus William Gomis, and I saw William Gomis here at plus 100. I was like, yeah, give me some of that. John Silva, knockout artist. He's going to be pushing for that knockout, and if he's looking to kind of trudge forward and land big shots, I feel that's going to play into William Gomez's game and style. A guy who's not easy to hit, a guy that's going to go out there and frustrate you. He's going to be on his bike. He's going to be moving on the back foot. He's going to be, trying to counter punch all fight, and he's very, very good at doing that. So, very close fight there. Minus 125 for John Silva. I've gone for William Gomis money line at plus 100. I think it's a great value bet. I think this is going to be a close fight, and I'm curious to see, do you have any action on this, or how do you think the fight is going to go?
I don't, but I really wish I did after hearing all this because, in my opinion, Gomis here at plus money just to win outright is the best value bet of the card. So well on you for finding that one. Again, extremely technical striker. Like you said, very hard to hit. I think he's the exact type of guy that's going to give Gene Silva all types of problems. Gomis, 26 years old, 11-fight win streak. Very, very tough task for someone to overcome here. And I think he's going to look spectacular here.
Indeed, yeah. Moving on, Joaquim Silva versus Drakkar Close, plus 150 for Joaquim Silva, minus 175 for Drakkar Close. Mauricio Ruffy versus Jamie Malarkey. Ruffy is settling at minus 200 right now. Jamie Malarkey plus 170. We got Dion Barbosa versus Ernesta Karashate, minus 220 for Barbosa. For Karashate, plus 180, or Karikate, I should say. Maybe I don't know how, maybe I'm butchering that name, but it wouldn't be anything new here, lads. Ishmael Bonfim, Phenom, coming up here against Vince Pichel. An organized hit job here, I think, on poor Vince Pichel, to be honest. I mean, Bonfim minus 500, Pichel plus 380. I mean, Bonfim plus money for a knockout. I mean, I like that, to be honest. Plus money for a knockout there. That's interesting. And then I'll just round off the last couple of fights to you, and I'll bring you in to see where the rest of your money lays. We're through all of my bets at this stage. First fight on the card, Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borjas. Minus 138 for Costa, plus 110. Somewhat of a pick 'em fight in that. of all the fights I've mentioned there? Do you have any more money down? Where's your value at?
No, I mean, honestly, that there's nothing else that I have down here because again, like this card is just so spread out, especially when you mentioned that bomb theme fight. Like the odds here are not going to be favoring people who are trying to place down money to actually win something here. So again, just staying away from stuff. Don't feel the need to place a wager on all these ones, but honestly, people did talk a lot about how this card is maybe a little bit underdeveloped for a pay-per-view. These first couple of fights here are going to be crackers. So I can't wait to watch these, but I don't have any money on them. So just gonna be watching for the pure essence of the sport, Ian.
100%. Yeah, those are tough fights to kind of see. You know, the Brazilians are going to be so fired up, and the Rio crowd are just so passionate, and the Brazilian fighters will be kind of feeding off that energy too. So some fighters will react better than others. Maybe some people will be too emotional. It's hard to call some of those early fights, but like I said, there was some money to be made on some of the fights. We've laid out our picks. Let's talk about our team parlay, shall we, Theo? Do we want to bring it up, and
Of
do we want to
course.
discuss it?
Absolutely. So what we have going on here is we have honestly, I think our best parlay of our whole time doing this here. I can't get rid of
Yeah,
this layout.
I'll bring it. That's
There
all
you
good.
go. All right, so we have here an even plus 1,000 for 4 picks here. This might be our
Holy,
best parlay we've made yet.
let's go, champ.
I want to know more about this Drakkar close here pick that you've made here to start because you did skip over that one a little bit.
Yeah, I was waiting to kind of talk about this a little bit. I was massively impressed. Look at Jakar. I got the chance to speak with him once. He's a really great guy, number one. But obviously, you don't think about that when you're putting money down. But made me confident was his performance in his last time out, coming back off ACL surgery. He went out there and absolutely murked Joe Selecki with that slam, knockout of the year. I think it won knockout of the year, if I'm not mistaken, for SevereMMA last year. And looked hungry. Just had another kid, I believe, with his wife Courtney Casey. So this guy is going to be coming in hungry. He's not going to be a guy who's going to get eaten alive by the Brazilian crowd. I think he loves challenges like this with Joaquim Silva. 35 now. Win over Clay Guida, loss to Armin Saryukin. I mean, that doesn't, that ages quite well. Another loss by knockout to Ricky Glenn, another knockout loss to Nasrat Hasprast. Drakkar Close hits hard, man. You know what I'm saying? So I think Drakkar Close is good value there. Anything can happen, but I think it's a big jump in class for Silva, and that's why I fancy Drakkar Close, and that's why he was my first pick on the card.
Yeah, tremendous here. And honestly, again, to go back to this Gomes pick here as well, best value bet on the card, in my opinion, plus 100. This guy is a monster. He's an excellent technical striker. I think it's going to be very frustrating here for his opponent Silva to try to get in close. Honestly, I think we're going to start off the fight nights here with a winning parlay, at least to start. And again, I may have got us under with the respect bet last time on the team parlay with Jim Miller to start off the night. So that was not a great start. But the good news is if we're going to get disappointed by a respect bet, it's going to be the second to last fight of the night. So we're going to have a bit of momentum
We're
going
gonna
into
have
it.
a bit of run. Hey, look at man, I could let the side down as well. You know what I mean? It's dodgy territory. All of these parlays, so hard to get them up. But we've got one up. We've got a plus 981, and we've been damn close. We've only been like one fighter off ever. So I like this one. I'm very happy that it's plus 1,000. I mean, you look at your Gomez plus 100. I don't like doing that, to be honest, picking him as a main pick and then putting him into parlay, because it could be double disappointment if he doesn't get it done. But I think I'm glad that you're in agreement with me that it's a great value bet, because I really do think it is a great value bet. Moving on down, then we've have whole Aldo in at plus money as well, Theo. You got to stick, that's your respect bet in as well, plus 125, and obviously Pantoja money line minus 180 as well, which rounds off the 4-leg parlay, the team parlay. You feeling confident?
I think so. I think this is going to be a great night for us here. I don't know if it's going to be a great night for the whole of the Brazilian fans, to be honest with you. I think they try to build these cards to get momentum going throughout the night so that the crowd stays into it, so that their guys get good victories. But they put a lot of them in really tough matchups here. So, to be honest with you, I don't know how happy this crowd is going to be, but it doesn't matter because as soon as Jose Aldo is making that walk and Run This Town hits the speakers, that place is going to be jumping. And that's a lot of pressure for anyone to deal with, especially this Martinez fella here as well, coming into his own backyard. So with that, hopefully Jose Aldo win is going to build momentum into the main event for Alexandre Pantoja as well. Should be a great night of fights no matter which way it goes, though.
100%. A couple of banana skins, all right, early in the card for the Brazilian fighters, but lots of potential for a good run of wins for the Brazilians, I think, as you progress up the card as well. Before we finish up here, let's bring up your set of bets or my set of bets, whichever one you want to do first. I'll leave the choice in your hands. We'll run through yours. Give us a quick rundown of your bets, the ones that you have going into UFC 301, Theo.
Yeah, again, here, just going Pantoja money line. Reminds me of an old saying that one of my old hockey coaches used to tell me was KISS, keep it simple, stupid. We just want to make sure we're doing the smart thing here. Pantoja should win this fight, no matter if it goes to decision or finish. So we had to run with him. Again, Jose Aldo, need I say more? Respect bet. Petrino inside the distance. I just think he's going to have too much here to handle for his opponent. Michel Pereira as well on an absolute hot streak of all hot streaks here, taking him to win and over 1.5 rounds. Same here for Kai Baralo, who's going against Paul Craig. And again, very dangerous guy here. They really, I can feel them really wanting me to go for Paul Craig here, but I won't do it, Ian. I will not do it.
You will not do it. You're not going for the respect bet for Paul Craig. You were burned once already. Let's hope it doesn't happen again with Aldo this time around as well. We're rooting for you and for your bets to come up, of course. Looking on to my bets, as I said, Pantoja Erceg goes the distance, plus 125. Petrino by decision, plus 225. A lot of plus bets here. I'm reaching for the stars here a little bit, but look, if it's a disaster, it's a disaster. If it goes well, we're absolutely gravy, baby. Pereira, round 1 KO, plus 200. Sure, money line, plus 130, plus 170. You can get it on Bet365. That will jump up and down and vary. Plus money, I think, is a good bet for sure, and definitely plus money for Gomis in this fight is well value. I'm out of all those bets, really like the Gomez bet and really like to pay around 1 KO bet to a plus 200. I would expect more money to come in on that and expect those odds to come down a little bit. So if you do fancy that, definitely hop onto it very early. Before we wrap up, I sent out a tweet just asking for people's best bets. I got a massive 2 tweets back, so we'll run through them. Shawnee Podcast, Shawnee Bets came in, kind of disagreeing with me somewhat on the main card, to be honest. I think he reckons Erceg plus 320 inside the distance, fancies an upset in the main event. No kick, just nothing on Twitter as well. Tweeted us to say Pantoja by submission, also fancying the finish there. Pantoja by submission. Let me bring that up real quickly here. By submission is plus 275 there. So if you fancy that, that might be worth a few quid as well. Over on the Instagram, I think I got one reply from my guy Evan. Yeah, he is coming in with Paul Craig and the 3rd round finish. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a crazy price. He's fancying a good old triangle finish, I bet, for Paul Craig. Paul Craig in round 3 is going to get you a massive plus 5,000, Theo. I mean,
oh my God.
Oh, Evan, if you get that up, my friend, you're going to be absolutely balling. We might have to invite you on to the next one if you do that bet like that up for sure. That's been our best bets for UFC 301. Always fun to join up with Theo to talk some fights. We'll be back for the next UFC pay-per-view, UFC 302. You look at 300 was amazing. 301 is going. I think it's going to be a good card. Brazilian cards always deliver. The crowds are electric. The fighters feed into it. It might not have a great name value, but we're seeing a lot of kind of fighters coming through here, and we'll see a lot of kind of Brazilian fighters. I feel progressing up the ranks with wins here as well. We'll be back for 302. I think Poirier Makhachev is 302, and a couple of
live from New Jersey.
Are you going to be going to it?
I thought about it. I don't believe work will work out with me in my schedule, so unfortunately not.
Well, that's fair. That's good news for me because you will have time to come on and do the betting show with me. So I'm glad about that. So, but that's a wrap. As I said, gamble responsibly, have a bit of crack. That's what we're going to do. We don't take it too seriously. And don't be giving out to the judges if your bet doesn't come up either. Have a bit of cop on. It's only a bit of crack. And the judges do a fine damn job. That's it for the UFC 301 betting show. For Theo Lander, I'm Ian O'Neill. We'll catch you the next time. Looking forward to getting back to break down this card next week. Take care, folks.